So now that I've had some time to get acquainted with these new drums, I think it's about time for a walkthrough video. So I'm going to guide you guys through the entire setup. We're talking drums, heads, cymbals, hardware, sticks, pedals, everything. From start to finish, we're going to cover every single piece of equipment that I'm using right now. So let's get started. Alright, so let's look at the drums first, and this is the main new thing about my setup right now. This is a custom-made kit by King Drums from the United States, and I actually had the great pleasure of going over there for some clinics and stuff and bringing these drums home with me, and kind of seeing how they were made, on site, which was really cool. But basically, we've been working, me and King Drums, on this kit for the majority of this year, and I had an idea of what I wanted from the very beginning, but we've eventually, honed in on all the details, and right now, it's basically exactly what I was looking for. It sounds freaking amazing, it looks amazing, it feels amazing. I'm very, very happy with this kit. But basically, the thought process behind it was, I look at drums kind of in a similar fashion that you might look at cymbals, where you have, crash cymbals, ride cymbals, splashes, effects, like they all serve different purposes, right? I don't want a drum kit where everything kind of blends together too much. I want a little bit of separation. So what we did basically was, again, it's a walnut kit, but the rack toms are actually a walnut and maple mix. The floor toms are walnut and mahogany mix, and then the kick is a straight walnut shell. But the kick and the floor toms also has birch reinforcement rings on them. And the idea behind this was, on the rack toms, I wanted a bit more of a warm, focused, kind of traditional sound. So the mix of maple and walnut really brings out that quality that I'm looking for there. And then the floor toms, I wanted a bit more bottom end. So hence the mix of mahogany and walnut, which both really have a nice, focused, tight bottom end sound. But I do want a bit more of a fat, smacky kind of attack. I don't want them to be, I don't want the floor toms to get lost in the low spectrum of the frequency range. So the birch reinforcement rings really bring out that attack and punch in the floor toms as well. And the same kind of principle applies to the bass drum, where I want a nice, rich, focused tone. So straight walnut shell there. But I do have the birch reinforcement rings on the bass drum as well to bring out a bit more extra attack. As for the sizes of the drums, this is a 10x8, 12x8, so it's the same depth on the rack toms. The reason for that is it's nice and easy to set up over the bass drum, and it also looks very good. So 10x8, 12x8, then we have a 14x12 floor tom, 16x14 floor tom, and a 24x17 kick. I've been longing for a 24-inch kick for so long. I love how it feels to play, and I love how it sounds. And the 17-inch depth really makes it a bit more compact, so it has that nice kind of attack character to it that I really enjoy. So again, 10x8, 12x8, 14x12, 16x14, 24x17, and then the snare. I have 3 different custom snares by King Drums, but this one is pretty much always on the kit, so I'll just show this one. And this is a 13x7 10-ply maple shell. Again, custom drum with a really nice finish to it. It just sounds really good, has a very loud and really punchy attack to it. It almost dominates, almost too much sometimes, but I really enjoy playing it. So let me just kind of show you very quickly what the drums sound like. I'll just kind of hit them one by one, and you can get an idea what they sound like. But they are kind of loud, and I'm careful with my hearing protection, so there we go. Okay, so let's listen to what the drums actually sound like really quick. Starting with the rack toms, moving down, and yeah. Oh, gotta put that one on. And I'm so freaking happy with how these drums sound. But let me just also show you what the heads are. So basically on the rack toms and the 14-inch floor tom, I have the same head configuration. It's all Evans drum heads on all of my drums. This is a Evans G2 clear over G1 clear on these three toms. And on the floor tom, I have an Evans EMAD calf tone head, which is basically a bass drum head. But in the 16-inch size, it does come as a tom hoop version, so it fits on toms. So I like to use that on my 16-inch floor tom as the batter head. And on the resonant side, I have the Evans EC resonant head. And the tuning, as for tuning wise on these toms, I tune the the rack toms and the 14-inch floor tom kind of a similar manner, where I actually tune them to a minor third interval. So I tune the batter head to, say, a B, for example, or whatever pitch that I find that sounds good on the drums. And then the resonant head I'll tune 3 semitones higher. So if the rack tom, so say if this batter head is a B, I'll tune this bottom head to a C, C sharp, D, right? So B and a D interval, and I'll just do that, and whatever, no specific pitches per se. It's just what I find that sounds good for each drum. So I'll do that tuning scheme for these 3 drums, and it sounds really good. I enjoy the nice amount of sustain and the punch I get from that specific interval. As for the floor tom, I tune the batter head pretty much finger tight, and then maybe a quarter turn up. And as for the resonant side, I tune that pretty high, actually, like a lot higher than you normally would, because the really sloppy low tuned batter head gives it a nice fat attack, but it doesn't project that much. It doesn't have that much volume. So tuning up the bottom head really brings out the projection in the drum, but it does resonate. It doesn't mean that I get some more resonance and more unwanted overtones after hitting the drum, and that's why I put some cotton balls on the inside. These are rolled up pieces of cotton which rest on the inside of the resonant head. So when I hit the drum, they jump up, the drum speaks at its full intensity, and then the cotton balls land on the resonant head again, dampening it, and I get rid of the unwanted overtones. So I get the best of both worlds in that specific tuning setup. So I'm very specific about how I tune my toms to achieve that sound that I'm looking for. As for the bass drum, the heads to start with is a Evans EMAD heavyweight batter head, and on the resonant side I'm using an EQ4 calf tone, which I cut a hole into and put a kick port in as well. And the tuning for that is pretty much same. The batter head is tuned like finger tight and maybe half a turn up. Resonant side is tuned maybe finger tight and then a full turn up, something like that. I'm not too specific about the bass drum. I just kind of tune it until it sounds good. As for the snare, I tune the resonant side, which is Evans 300 hazy. The top batter side is Evans heavyweight. So the resonant side I'll tune pretty tight, like I'll really crank it up, and then the batter head I'll just tune to a pitch that I enjoy, and that will give me a nice, the crispness and the ghost notes and everything from the really tight bottom side, and the pitch that I'm looking for from just tuning the batter head like that, and adjust the snare wires to taste. So that's kind of how I go about the drums. But with that said, let's actually move on to the cymbals right now. So I'm using all Meinl cymbals, and from left to right, this is the setup I'm using. So first up, we have the 16-inch Byzance Extra Dry Medium Thin hi-hats, which are my all-time favorite hi-hats. I love big hi-hats, and these are very crisp and articulate, which I really enjoy with these. As for the left side crash, this is a Byzance 18-inch Extra Dry Dual Crash, my all-time favorite crash as well. This little mini stack that I'm using here is a 10-inch Byzance Dark Splash, upside down over the, unfortunately, discontinued 10-inch Soundcaster Custom Piccolo Trash China. So the top cymbal is upside down, and and that sounds like this. Really nice and biting, and it's a good contrast to the other stack, which I'll get to in a second. As for the ride, I have a couple of different rides that I like to switch between, but for the most of the time, I actually really enjoy having this one on the kit. It's a very nice, subtle, kind of jazzy ride, but it is a Byzance 24-inch Big Apple Dark Ride. It sounds like this. Wobbles like crazy too. I love this ride, but it is very quiet, but I find it actually works as a nice contrast with the otherwise pretty loud and aggressive cymbals that I'm using. So getting over to the stack here, I'm actually using the top cymbal from the Matt Garska Fat stack, so the 18-inch top cymbal from that over an upside down 16-inch Classics Custom Trash Crash. They're put on an auxiliary hi-hat mount, and I'm also using a Meinl Ching ring on top, and that sounds like this. Very nice stack, pretty much my favorite, and it's a nice contrast, like I said, with the other smaller stack here. As for the crash, this is a 19-inch Byzance Extra Dry Thin Crash on my right side. Really nice crash, very nice, complementary right side crash to the left side dual crash over here. And finally, we have the gemstone in my setup, which is actually a prototype. This is a Byzance R&D 18-inch. I guess it would be called like a Byzance vintage trash china. Basically, there's a story behind this cymbal. I'll leave a link to it. You can click and check that out on how this cymbal came about. But it's a really cool china, and it sounds like this. And that's pretty much it for cymbals. Let's actually move on to the hardware that I'm using. I'm using basically a custom-made kind of setup based off of Gibraltar stealth racks. So I'm using a Gibraltar stealth rack for the one that goes over your double bass pedal if you're using one of those. The one on this side, and I'm using the side mount Gibraltar stealth rack, and I basically connected those with a series of different tubes and clamps and stuff. And this setup, the reason I enjoy it and the reason I kind of built it this way is because first of all, I like the look and the feel of having a rack at least when it's set up. When I go out gigging, I have separate stands for that. But the rack looks really cool. It's very convenient and very easy for me to just get stuff where I want to. And I really enjoy the fact that it looks it almost looks invisible at least when you look at it from above. Because basically, if you look at it from above right now, you can hardly see any of the hardware, right? The cymbals are all covering it. That you don't have a lot of stands and like feet on the ground, so it's very clean and very just a really nice and tidy kind of setup, which I really enjoy. Again, for having in my studio, I don't bother with bringing this out. It's just too much to drag around. But yeah, it's pretty much basically all Gibraltar hardware. I can make a separate video on that at some point, really going into detail on how I built it. Let me know if you guys are interested in that, and maybe I could look into making that at some point. Just leave a comment if you want to see a video about how I've set up my rack. But for now, let's move on from that and actually talk really quick about the sticks that I'm using. These are the ProMark Intruder sticks, and it's pretty much the only stick model that I use. I love having one stick that serves every purpose for me. These are basically like in between a 5A and 5B stick, but with a little bit of extra length, which I really enjoy. So yeah, that's my go-to stick, ProMark Intruders. I really love those. As for the pedal, it's actually a Sonar Jojo Mayer signature pedal, the Jojo Mayer Perfect Balance pedal, but it is equipped with a Lowboy custom wood beater, which is, I really enjoy the extra weight and the wood smack from that beater. So it's a nice combination. And I've said it before. I'm gonna make a review video on this pedal. I'm just gonna see when I can find the time for it. So stay tuned for that, and I'll get more into details on this pedal. But for now, I can say I really enjoy how it feels to play. It's not maybe the perfect in construction, as I've had some problems with it in that regard, but I'll get more into that in the actual review that hopefully I'll get out sometime soon. The beater is really nice though. The Lowboy beater I can really recommend. As for the other stuff that I'm using Drumtacs dampeners. So basically, like moon gels on stereo, it's so much better in my opinion. Because the problem I've had with moon gels, I've been using that in the past, is that they kill too much of the tone of the drum. They don't just get rid of overtones, they get rid of all the tones almost. The Drumtacs are much better at just like focusing the sound and just taking off that little bit of high end that maybe you don't always want in your drums. So I'm using those on my snare, also on the 12-inch and 14-inch floor tom. You can also put them on the resonant side. I used to do that with my other kit, but I didn't find that I needed to do that for this kit. As for some other miscellaneous stuff that I'm using, the throne that I sit my sweaty butt on all the time is a Gibraltar 9608 HM hydraulic throne. So it has this little lever, which I can kind of, with air pressure, I can kind of go up and down like that. It's really nice. I actually really enjoy this seat, but it is getting a little wobbly now. I've been using it for a while, so I might want to upgrade to something else soon. But I'm also using, let's see, we have the in-ears that I'm using. This is a set of custom molded in-ears by a Swedish brand called Sound and Communication. The guy who makes these lives like 30 minutes away from me, so it's really nice and convenient. Very high quality in-ears. I absolutely love these. And whatever in-ears you guys get, I could highly recommend. Like it's a costly investment, but there's nothing more important than your hearing, and these really protect that, and they sound really amazing. I absolutely love having a set of in-ears. It's probably the best investment I ever made. Let's also really quick talk about the recording equipment I use. I won't get into details, but I'll just kind of mention the names of those. I do have Skype lessons focused on recording and mixing drums separately. So if you guys want to learn more about that kind of stuff, this is probably not the video for it, but do get in touch with me if you want to set up some kind of lesson for that and you want to get more into details. But I will mention what recording equipment I am using. Starting with what I'm filming with my phone over there, which is a Huawei Mate 9 Pro, I believe. And up here I'm filming with a GoPro Hero Session, which I just recently got, and it's really nice. It's actually very nice and convenient and easy to use. It's one of the cheaper models of GoPros, but it really does the job well. As for the recording equipment, again, I will just mention the names of them real quick. over here we have the interface that I'm using, which is a Focusrite Scarlett 18i20 second generation audio interface, and that's connected through optical cable to the Behringer Ultra Gain 8200, which is a like 8-out converter. It allows me to have 8 more inputs to add to the 8 that I already have with the audio interface. It allows me to record up to 16 microphones at the same time. The overheads that I'm using are a set of AKG C391B overheads, using a space pair configuration. And for the toms, I'm using Sennheiser E604, 604 tom mics, except for on the floor tom, where I'm using an Audix D6, which is basically like a bass drum mic, which is also coincidentally I use another one of those inside my bass drum, together with a Shure Beta 91 also inside of the bass drum. And in front of the bass drum, I'm using a Samson C01 just to pick up a little bit of the bottom end from the front head. I'm also using one of those actually outside in the corridor, in the hallway, to pick up the natural reverb from the hallway, as a really nice extra depth and a third dimension kind of sound to the whole drum sound. On the snare, I'm using Audix i5s, top and bottom. And for my voice, which is the same, when I'm not recording my voice, I use that mic. On the hi-hat, it's an Audio-Technica AT897, I believe, like a shotgun kind of mic. Really nice for voice recordings and also for hi-hat. So I think that's pretty much it. If there's anything I forgot, please let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to answer your questions there. But I really appreciate you guys checking out this walkthrough, and I'm very excited to record more videos very soon with this brand new custom kit that I'm just extremely happy with. So I hope you guys enjoy how it sounds. I hope you enjoy this little walkthrough, and I will see you guys again soon with some more videos. All right, take care, guys.